Friday, March 23rd, 2018, Monaco 64, home of alternative economics and contrarian views. So I'm going to look at the markets this morning as usual. Big day yesterday on the downside for the stock markets. And I also want to talk about free markets, sound money, banking, finance. I do believe banking and finance are necessary in the modern indirect exchange economy. The problem that we have right now for the last 30 years is that banking and finance is taken over the economy. And the analogy is, of course, of the tail wagging the dog. The dog should be the real economy. Finance and banking should just be like a utility. But right now it's gone completely wrong, in my opinion. And that's why we need to go back to a sound money system. The present system, the fiat money system, financialization that we've had, that's actually destroying capitalism, and it's destroying free markets, it's destroying freedom. So I'll come to that a little later. Yesterday, of course, huge day on the downside for markets. The Dow was down 724 points, just under 3%. S&P was down 68, which is 2.5%. And the NASDAQ composite was down 178, or just under 2.5%. So this morning, it's 8:12 a.m. London time. The Dow right now is down 30 points at 23,929. But it has actually been down to 23,700. So it was down over 200 points overnight, the Dow futures. S&P is now 2640, down 2 points. It was down almost 30 points earlier on. The NASDAQ future is down 28, or 0.5%. And it was down like over 100 points earlier on. So actually the markets have been quite volatile overnight. And since I woke up, I had a look at the markets. We've actually rebounded in the last half hour or so since London and Europe have come in. Maybe the boys at JP Morgan are putting some trades on for the ESF, which is a U.S. Treasury fund, Exchange Stabilization Fund. We don't know, but there's a lot of talk that it's this drop in markets is all to do with trade wars and Trump, putting tariffs on other countries. There's another story now that he's exempted European partners, but not the Chinese. There's going to be a trade war with China, and that's why the markets are down. I think it's rubbish, personally. I think it's just the credit markets are turning, and the spigot of credit and money is, the tide is going out. Things never last forever in markets. And why do I say that? Well, there's some stories that you look at and I think that's what's going on, like LIBOR, iOS, the LIBOR rates and iOS rates are going up. That means that banks are having a harder time funding themselves. Those are overnight rates between international banking institutions. I think that's more what's probably putting a lot of pressure on financial markets and the stock market. And then yesterday I saw a story as well about investment grade credit crashes as Dow dumps 500 points. So and that's in zero hedge. So it's costing more and more for corporations to borrow money. And what's been the main driver of the stock market in the last few years with the easy money, easy credit? Well, it's been the buyback of stock by major corporations because it's been so cheap for them. And how do they do that? People think they just have the cash. Well, how do they get the cash? Well, they issue bonds. issuing bonds mean? It means borrowing money. And now it's getting more and more costly for them to borrow money. They're not going to be issuing, it's not going to be worthwhile for them to issue bonds and borrow money. So it's normal that we're seeing this. And technically as well, there's, I think, as I've said before, we saw the drop from the end of January in the stock market, and we've had a consolidation. And what I see now is the next leg down. It looks like we're on it at the moment. Yeah, it's early days right now. The market has been down over 200 points. Now it's down 65, but it's very, very fluid, as some people say. What about gold and silver this morning? They've actually done quite well. Gold traded up above that 1340 level. We got up to a high of 1343.50. Right now, we just dropped back down a bit. We're at 1339, up 10. So gold performing well. Silver is performing well, but you'd expect it to be doing a lot better than gold. It's doing slightly better than gold. It's up 0.8%. Gold is up 0.75%. Silver 1652, up 14 cents. The currencies are very quiet. Sterling is unchanged at 141.07. Euro up 20 pips or 0.1% at 123.26. And the dollar is down 22 pips or 0.2% against the yen at 105.09, but it's been as low as 104.63. So the dollar remains under pressure. Crude oil remains quite strong, actually. It's fairly strong. I know that there's been a big resistance around 65, 66 forever now, for months. But we are near that top there. We are at 64.90, up 60 cents crude. Yeah, bond yields have dropped. We're at 282, but still quite elevated. But as I said, corporate rates, corporate bond rates are going up, and funding is getting more and more difficult for them. So in terms of other news, the other confusing things geopolitically and politically is this the Trump administration. Just go quickly over it. I don't talk much about it, but he's just how can I say? He's just appointed John Bolton as a national security advisor, and I remember John Bolton from the W. Bush administration, and he was a war hawk, a neocon. He's been, you read his, how can I say, his Wikipedia, and it says that he's been a member of the Project for the New American Century, or PNAC, and that was the institution that wrote that America needed a new Pearl Harbor in order to be able to go out into the world and spread its influence and this was written, this PNAC paper was written just before 9/11, 2001, and they got their major Pearl Harbor event. I'm just stating facts. I'm not saying they were involved in it, but this is the part of kind of group. He's a neocon, basically, John Bolton, and you would have expected President Trump, from what he said during his campaign, if he was going to appoint someone to make America great again and bring, not be the policeman of the world, he'd be appointing Ron Paul or Rand Paul to do this job, not John Bolton. So very confusing. Let's give him the benefit of the doubt for now. But, InfoWars and Alex Jones, they report good, interesting news that you can't see in the mainstream. But I'm not sure, I've got a headline here from November 16th, 2008 on Infowars.com. And it says, Neocon John Bolton grilled on BBC. The story isn't there anymore. I think there is a video, but they called him a neocon, and they were against the neocons, Infowars. But now, the story that's come out yesterday, White House shakeup, Trump fires McMaster's, brings in Bush's UN ambassador John Bolton. So, you know, now Infowars calls John Bolton, a former U.S. ambassador to United Nations, is a hawkish conservative. No, so now Infowars calls John Bolton a conservative, not a neoconservative. But anyway, I was speaking earlier about markets, sound money, free markets, freedom, banking and finance. I think the system needs fixing. I don't think it's going to be fixed by the people who run the system, i.e. the central bankers, the politicians, the bankers, the regulators. It's going to be done because of a crisis or a collapse, I think. And you might argue, well, that's what they're looking for, crisis. They create the crisis, there's a collapse, and they bring a solution. But I hope that people wake up and they see that the solution is not centralized government-mandated central banking markets. I hope that, something free comes out of it. And sound money, the best sound money is from the free market. And gold and silver, of course, have been part of that for thousands of years. They're sound because they've maintained their purchasing power, and the rate of growth of finding gold equals pretty much the rate of growth of the population for some reason, and that's why it's been such good money. Silver, probably not as much, but still very good. Cryptocurrencies, I think they might have something to do with this new change. I hope. Am I saying they're going to take over? I'm not sure, but we need, if we want the world to remain prosperous, free, and for people to have markets, because without markets you can't specialize, you can't have progress, you can't have new technologies. And what's happening now, it's that the banks and finance and government, they've gotten too big and they're destroying the market, and they've encumbered the whole Western free, supposedly free market economy with a lot of debt, regulations, and manipulation. So that's what I hope, that we get something that is better, but it won't be easy, I think, to get there. And we got to make sure that we don't accept the solutions from the people who have been creating the havoc for over 100 years, the central bankers, the bankers. And by that, I don't mean that we don't need banking. Banking serves a purpose, but not the present kind of banking. So that's what I want to speak about. It will be an interesting day, of course, again today, Friday, end of the week. Will be interesting to see what the stock market does and what gold and silver do. Are we going to have another big drop today? It could be, highly likely. So if you enjoyed this video, please like, share it far and wide. Subscribe to my channel if you haven't yet. And you can also follow me on steemit.com and on Twitter. And I'll talk to you later. Bye.